It is one of the last remaining shadows of the Cold War, but not for long. The White House announced Tuesday that President Obama will remove Cuba from America's list of nations that sponsor terrorism. The president's plan aims to end decades of hostilities between the tiny island nation and the U.S. and eventually restore international trade and commerce. Joe, the president met with Cuban President Raul Castro over the weekend at the Summit of the Americas in Panama, and it was a symbolic meeting given the fact that for the last 30 years, Cuba, this little tiny island nation just south of Florida, has shared a U.S. terrorism list with nations like Iran and Syria. Obvious question, but I throw it to you. Do you think that this is a good idea to normalize relations with Cuba?
I do. Obviously, Obama wants to normalize these relations. I personally don't think that Cuba is a direct threat to the United States anymore. It was interesting that Senator Marco Rubio has come out and actually said that he thinks it's a terrible idea. This is a country that harbors fugitives and all sorts of terrorist activities. But obviously, you know, there's politics involved. Marco Rubio is often against the administration and what Obama believes in. So I personally do think that this is a major step forward in normalizing the relations between the US and Cuba. And we are going to see companies developing their relations, making the most out of these relations. Businesses are going to profit from this. And I think it's a major step forward.
And it's not just GOP presidential contenders like Marco Rubio who has said that, you know, essentially Cuba is nothing short of a terrorist state. It's somewhat ironic given the fact that Rubio's is a first-generation Cuban American. His parents came here. That said, it's not just Republicans either who are against, or rather, it's not just Democrats who are for this deal. There are Republican lawmakers weighing in as well. Jeff Flake, Republican senator from Arizona, said, quote, "It's long past time to remove Cuba from the terrorism list. This list should mean something, and it means more now." And to underscore what he was saying is that essentially we don't need to be focusing our attention on faux terrorist states like Cuba when we should be focusing on states perhaps like Syria and Iran. Now, there will still be a 45-day review period by the House and the Senate to essentially get used to the idea, see if it'll work. The White House has been quick to say that Cuba has not engaged in any terrorist-related activities for many, many months. And of course, this was a staple of President Obama's race to the White House during his first election. So this has been on the president's books for quite some time. What do you think? Do you think that it's about high time, you know, we turned Cuba into like a St. Bart's? And I say that somewhat jokingly, but by the same token, had we lifted sanctions a long time ago, there's a good chance that this would be a destination place.
I do think it's a good idea, not to turn it into a St. Bart's, but to lift the sanctions, to normalize relations, to help businesses to move over there and to move this country forward. It's interesting how it's affected Obama's approval rating, which is now at about 80% over there. So definitely this is something Obama has wanted for a long time, and it's going to help to normalize relations. I don't think that Cuba is a threat to the US anymore.
Well, to underscore that very same sentiment, just today, traveling to Cuba, while still restrictive, is going to become a little bit easier. The State Department has lifted some of those restrictions, but just today, cheapair.com, and no, this is not a plug for that website, but this particular website announced that it would offer direct flights from the U.S. to Cuba for those who are allowed to go there. So times are changing. Let us know what you think about this. Do you think the normalizing of relations with Cuba is a good idea? And what do you think about the president's charge to get this done before he leaves the White House? Leave your comments in the section below and be sure to subscribe to us. You're watching The Lib News.